Live from the Rob Christensen Radio Network Satellite Studio, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies. Oh my goodness. Sorry, everybody. Finally, I've figured out how to operate the gizmo once again for the 16th time running. And hi there and welcome to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the podcast for movie lovers who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at, we're going to be chatting about Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, or as released in North America back in 1982, The Road Warrior. Anyway, let's hop right to the synopsis. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior begins with voiceover narration and scenes from the original Mad Max intercut with Fall of Civilization stock footage, telling us just how society collapsed into anarchy and a never-ending fight in the wastelands over gasoline or the juice. Now caught up, the film cuts to Mel Gibson's Mad Max Rockatansky in those wastelands doing what he does, racing around, fighting over gas with other roving scavengers. After besting one small gang, including a mohawk-sporting, fetish leather-wearing biker, who we will meet again, Max is almost trapped by another scavenger, the Gyro Captain, played by Bruce Spence. Max manages to turn the tables and force the Gyro Captain to help him find another source of gas. The captain leads him to an oil rig / refinery / settler compound in the middle of nowhere with an entire tanker trailer full of fuel. What a fortuitous turn of events. Of course, Max isn't the only one who is interested. Lord Humongous, the so-called Ayatollah of rock and rolla, and his motorbike riding and hot rod driving gang of BDSM costume-wearing hooligans, including the mohawked biker from earlier, have already laid siege. After the gang captures a few settlers trying to escape and does unspeakable things to them, Max saves one, but only so the settler can get him gas from the folks in the compound. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out like Max planned, and he ends up trapped inside the compound too. Life is hard in the wastelands.
The Road Warrior. Pray that he's out there. Somewhere.
I'm praying, Road Warrior. All right, on that note, let's give a very warm welcome to my co-host with the most, Mr. Jim Chliboyko.
Hi, Kai.
Welcome, Jim.
Good,
how you doing?
Great. I feel like going for a drive. But that's sort of what it's like driving home from the lake on a Sunday night. You know, that's just basically just a sort of a quick 90-minute version. Yeah. But great. How are you doing?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it's like.
It is.
Good. Very good. Very good. Jim, we've got, I know we've got a few people in the stream now, and a couple have chimed in. So I'm going to, let's say, first of all, let's give a big welcome to Jelly Duck. Ahmed is in the house. And a couple want to say, gonna say hi to Cynthia. I don't believe she's in the chat. She works very, very early in the morning. Yeah. One of my former colleagues at the city of Winnipeg. But very early. So I doubt she's in the chat given the time we start, but I want to say hi to her anyway. And
Hello.
Mr. Lennon. And I suspect Ms. Fowler as well. Hello, Richard, and hello, Katie.
Hey, guys.
All right, Jim. So there you go. I think we've said hi to everyone who's made it out right out of the gate, and what does
it hold up?
Yeah, let's get right up. Does it? What do you think? Did it hold up for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Did it?
100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's, okay, we can talk about it. There's one thing that I kind of, there's one passage that I don't love. But other than that, I mean, it sort of makes it.
But at that top line gut reaction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, and the shots, there was something about movies in the 70s and 80s where they would just hit. Maybe it was because I was that age. When they came around, you didn't question the voice of it. Now, you're older. Well, when you're a kid and you're watching these movies, when you're first exposed to them, I bought in immediately. Like just even watching the trailer again, I remembered just the whole like I got to see that. And the sort of personal history of it is, and I remember seeing commercials for Jaws, and I was a very young kid, and I thought it was a documentary. So I thought my parents went to see it, and I said, do these people really die? Like I was that age where I was sort of not sure. So
you're still taking things on face value right off the bat.
Nowadays you see a trailer and you're like, oh, come on, I've seen that before, and. Or whatever, or like, oh, that's unlikely, or that's unrealistic. But back then, you're just taking everything in, right? And so that's sort of, I was still that age when I was able to sort of believe the movies unquestionably, and this just brought it all back. Part of the personal story of this, and I may have some of the details wrong. We would go visit my parents were split up, so we would go visit my dad in the summer, and my stepmom was a little bit younger than my dad, and she was the fun one. So she'd do things like take us out to movies that we probably shouldn't see.
like all step parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially early on.
Yes,
you know.
yeah. So she would take us to like slightly, not appropriate movies, like, maybe the Blues Brothers at a young age and the Road Warrior and that sort of thing. My brother's almost 4 years younger than me, so he would have been 7 or 8 when he saw this one. And I could just remember walking out of the theater and being, oh, that's awesome. So yeah, and I of course I didn't pick up on some of the subtleties at the time, but anyway, that all is part of the thing. I just bought into the whole thing, and I bought into it again as I was watching it. I'm just along for the ride. I'm in immediately. So,
oh, very cool.
Yeah,
well, that's sweet. What did you? Okay, it's interesting you felt that way. Myself, my initial reaction was almost like the polar opposite. My initial reaction was like, oh dear Lord, I can't believe I bought this. And then it's like kind of, well, it came out in 82. I was 15. What taste did I have? But as it went on, I was like, no, this still there's something special going on here.
Yeah.
Like it almost transcends standard judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so bonkers. It's just so off the wall. I was like kind of, nah, you know what? What is that line? Always copied but never, or always imitated. One of those.
Yeah.
I think
I know which one you mean. Yeah.
Often imitated, never
perfected or something like that. Yeah.
Somebody in the comments will chime in on that. They're searching it up as we speak, Jim.
Probably Richard and Katie.
Yeah. Somewhere in our online team. But yeah, so I thought that was something where I was like, initially, Jim, I was like, oh, this did not age well. And there's certainly some parts of it we'll get into later where it's like, what did they mean by that? That said, yeah, I do. I think you know what? It's just so bonkers, so off the wall. Like I kind of have this questionnaire for myself and when we get into the, the back and forth, but even on things like performance, I'm like, can you really use the word performance with this movie? And I don't mean like so bad it's good. I don't mean to make fun of it. I mean, it's like, you can't judge it that way. Not the right language, to judge this film, to break it down,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, what did you, was there any part of it, Jim, as you were watching it, you're kind of going, we're looking at it in middle-aged eyes. Like, I mean, it's 15. You would have been, 13 when it came out?
There's certain
early
details.
80s with early 80s politics.
And this would have been right around the time where maybe preceding it a couple of years where, ABC's Friday Night Videos was a big deal. So it's got a little bit of that, the early rock video, almost glam metal kind of look, with the Kid's hair. I think that's his actual character's name is the Kid. The Kid's teased out hair.
Feral Kid.
The Feral Kid.
That is the character name, the Feral Kid.
Yes. And then I think the other one that struck me was the Warrior Woman, Virginia Hay, I think was her name, the actress's name.
Yeah.
And it's like, boy, they really, they don't have any technology. There's no electricity, but it's nice to see that hair crimpers are still functional. She had enough power or something to have that crimped hair. And
crimped and teased, like blown out, like well, and you know what? Anyone watching, like I'd love to hear your take on the look, because I mean myself, if I could say it, a hot take, it was almost like on the one hand, the bad guys are like Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten, and on the other hand, we have a Hall & Oates music video, like very just coiffed.
But, I mean, and
except for the Feral Kid.
Well, and the not that everybody on the white team, I'll call them that, was blonde.
Oh, we can call them that. We can call them that.
Oh yeah, I guess they were all pretty white.
Were,
but yeah,
like,
so
look
the
at
white
the
team,
costuming. And
yeah,
that. Yeah. Anyway,
but
so
they're all in pastels and whites, and the bad guys were all in
warmer colors,
grays and blacks and stuff. And I thought that it was even, for its time, a little bit dated, but it's still, I think it's still kind of, you knew who was who, like immediately, you knew who was on what side, just by
I wonder.
Yeah.
And
but
it
it was like
straddles both.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Yeah. But so there was a couple of those looks. There was one where and it was in the trailer you played, where the boy comes up to watch Max take off, and I guess they have the water vapor in the back. It's at night. They have the water vapor backlit, so you can see like steam or smoke or something like that.
Like an early '80s rock video.
Yeah, but then there's other scenes, like that one scene of when Max is injured and the gyro captain goes to pick him up, and it's just Max's head on the gyro.
Richard chimes in, the air crimpers must be gasoline run.
But there's that shot of Mel Gibson lying back,
you
totally
got the
wounded.
reference, Jelly Duck.
And just the landscape is, they fly over the bad guy's camp, and the landscape's passing, and he's sort of fighting, to stay in consciousness. And there's some shots that there's one shot actually, and I can tell.
Well, I thought that one was it reminded me of Platoon, which
Yes.
was a later movie,
Yes.
but I think it was actually boosted out of the Deer Hunter.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
like I think that was a
nothing's
Deer Hunter.
new under the sun.
Yeah. No, I think they scooped that. Sorry, you were gonna.
I was just gonna say there's this one little throwaway shot that I've never noticed before, and it's, I guess I'll call them bad guys. So the bad guys are come around, and all the animals scatter, and one cameraman actually follows the zigzag of a bunny rabbit. Like, he follows him
When they get into the compound.
Yeah, when they get into the compound.
like,
and it's about five seconds, but I can say, holy cow, you deserved your Fosters that day. You know how hard that would be to get that shot? It's not they don't call a lot of attention to it. I just thought, man, bravo, that's some good camera-ing.
Well, you got to remember, the camera had been sitting there on its, pushed out over the dolly track so it didn't get caught, and then they're like, they got a Wrangler going, okay, I'll just throw them in front of you and do your thing.
It's still impressive. I try to take pictures of birds, and they foil me all the time, so that's but so yeah, I mean, there's some,
because there isn't a Wrangler there to put it where you need it to have your beautiful shot.
But there's so many. I'm just looking at the notes that I had. Those are mostly scenes, but there were a lot of things that I remember from watching it the first time, and the distinct, but more so the scenes than the shots. Like him when he opens up the dog food, you think the dog's gonna get it, and he starts eating the dog food. That I remember quite. And
that's a great comment. How did you? Oh, and anyone in the chat or Jim, if you're finding my in my 80s pop beats too loud, let me know. Otherwise, I'm sticking to this volume. I think it kind of sets that 80s, like we're at the roller rink, late 70s, early 80s vibe. But where were you with that? Where was I with that?
Just the shots and stuff.
Yeah,
and was there any? We're talking about the look of it.
Yeah. How did you remember this movie? Like, once I saw it, it was almost I remember The Road Warrior. I do remember liking it more than I liked with what's her name? The Thunderdome, Mad Max.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
Beyond the Thunderdome.
Yeah, Tina Turner.
Which I thought was over, like it went Hollywood, man.
Yeah.
Whereas this,
which they often do.
But I'm kind of surprised that this was the same. Had the same. When I say gritty, I mean indie, low budget, crazy yeah, only one person thought this stuff up.
Mhm.
No studio would have said, "Oh, what we need is more BDSM wear."
Yeah, exactly.
Can we just have one more studded leather mask? Just
Yeah.
one.
We feel you're not. It's not
And
enough
I
of
mean
a
that as
family
a
movie.
bizarre, complicated compliment. But I don't remember it quite the way I'm seeing it now. Back to those costumes. Yeah, it was. There's a part of me, like, even it's like there's a couple of themes going on here. Some are kind of obvious. It's like, well, out in the wastelands, you can either be on the side of good. See all these people that are kind of dressed like Luke Skywalker? They're the good guys.
Oh yeah. No, that's a good point.
And
too,
then
yeah.
everyone else it's almost the forces of chaos and depravity.
Mhm.
There's the one scene where before the woman's died, she's assaulted, and I was like, maybe I kind of remember that. That might have been the first like sexual assault I'd ever seen on film. And not that it was like, it's not right in your face. It's not, but you kind of know. And it's almost like, it was interesting the way they were drawing, like literally in their uniforms. I was thinking of like Mapplethorpe, another 80s kind of part of the culture wars and all that. And it's like, I'm kind of amazed out in the wastelands, you can show that much skin. On a motorcycle, I would be concerned about all
Shaving?
kinds of things.
Sunburn?
or even just with all those assless chaps.
Yeah.
Wow, we got our content of men's butts.
Yeah. Well, they were committed. I mean, it's in for a penny, in for a pound, I guess. But the young boy, the feral boy, had a similar, like, he didn't have much of a, like, he had just sort of a, it wasn't the same. I'm not drawing any kind of parallels, but he had a very not very protective set of clothing and either. So it just, I don't know. It was just
the feral boy.
Yeah,
well,
the
he
feral
did have
boy.
that cool
top
mailed hat so
Yeah.
that he could grab the the boomerang of death, the boomerang of head cleaving.
You know what? I didn't remember the boyfriend.
We're
going to
come back to that, Richard, in a second. Okay.
I didn't remember the boyfriend being taken out, but I distinctly remember the fingers coming off, and that was that. I got it, and everyone saying no, don't, and like so many things that they don't call attention to.
I remember everybody laughing afterwards.
Yes, yeah.
Like just that, again, going back to they're depraved and cruel and chaotic, and it's all horrific. It's all awful.
Yeah. And they would be the kind of people that wouldn't have the sort of the organization to actually do the refining of gas, because they're not all there. They're probably small attention spans, gravitating towards violence,
and sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although at least it's. Oh well, we'll get to that.
I think one of the
later,
credits. I think one of the credits was Tent Lover 1.
Tent Lover
Something like that.
1 and 2, or Tent Lovers. I think it was just Tent Lovers.
Okay.
Yeah. And at least there, though, it looked like it was about it's like, wow, consensual sex. It didn't look like they're there. They looked like they were surprised in the middle of enjoying something, which was kind of, I think, bizarrely noteworthy in this film.
And a bit of a bit of a Three's Company moment. Like they're like, ooh, like we're exposed.
Well,
they're all
almost
talking.
a British. I'm thinking British Benny Hill moment.
Yeah. Yes.
They start running around in that speeded up thing, which they used a lot. I want to. Okay, we'll go back to Richard, but first let's briefly. I want to talk. Jelly Duck mentions there's many stunts in this movie, and that's and they were all. Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that's part of the 15-year-old in me loved about it. But okay. Hi, Jim.
Just adjusting my seat. Sorry. My ID bar is covering up my face.
Here, let me take this banner off. Oh, stunts, yes, all practical. Like a low budget film or a probably low to mid tier budgeted film. And yeah, all practical stunts. And they really did, like, in some ways the cinematography is pretty straight up, but wow, they knew how to get the action. Like, my 50-year-old 2020 eyes are going, I've seen way bigger action from George Miller in Fury Road.
Oh, that restrained movie.
Yeah, exactly.
That kitchen sink drama.
Yeah, but back to Jelly Duck's comment, all the stunts, that's certainly where they, they're like, okay, we're gonna shoot this pretty straight here. Let's make sure we get this right. And I think that I viscerally remember that from when I was a kid, like just how wild it was. But again, once again, only a few set pieces. Nothing crazy. Like any, actually more like any good action film, you have a sequence here, then a big final sequence. You've teased a lot of stuff, then you go all out.
Yeah.
And I think it delivered that. Yeah, no, those stunts were amazing, especially for the time, And
there was a few. There was one in the final chase where the guy just flips over. He sort of goes into a roadside cavern, I guess, and it's a motorcyclist, and he just flips and flips and flips. Yeah, and
it's right at the end of the trailer.
And you have to admire that sort of insane Australian commitment. When in the big part, and here's a spoiler, when Max takes out number one
I don't
and
think
number
we need
two,
to warn anyone. Then we put up the Chiron, and it's almost 40 years old.
Mad Max lives. But when he takes out number one and number two, there's a big explosion, and I don't know if you noticed. I watched it twice. And
who are we talking about? Number one, number two,
number
like
the Humongous and his
Wes. The
Humongous is the bodybuilder. That's his name. The guy with the goalie mask.
I know. Yeah, Humongous, Lord Humongous.
Yeah, and then Max. He's got the second in command. That's what I took it as. Wes, I guess.
The biker, with the mohawk.
He's right on the hood.
Changed until he's chained.
Yes,
and then there's the toady.
Yes, yeah, but he was. I mean, they had some poles
with his fingers.
Yeah. But so right at the end, the very last sort of major when he crashes into Humongous's dune buggy, and the truck kind of goes on its side and falls over, and everything sort of not really explodes, but there's a big. Somebody's taken, it looks like a leg of meat of some and thrown it in there. I don't know if it was attached.
Oh yeah,
but it goes cartwheeling across the screen as if it's Wes's leg or something like that. And there's several different things, details like that they are just kind of chef's kiss.
Yeah,
very sweet. Yeah.
Like and a complete commitment to just a complete commitment to the insanity. One of my standard questions, kind of asked myself, I wanted to ask you, but I've changed the question because usually I'm asking myself, and I alluded to this before, does any of this really stand out? And I'm like, it's all the performances, they're all nuts. I do think Bruce Spence kind of brought, you can kind of tell when they said, okay, who are we giving? This is another role that's kind of got to work. Mm-hmm. The actor's got to deliver, and I thought he delivered. But everyone else, I don't think you can kind of judge them. I don't know. Can you judge them? Can you say that performance is great or that performance wasn't, or they took their paycheck? It almost seems like the wrong thing to yeah, it's just a metric you can't use with something this crazy. It's like Miller said, just go as crazy as you can. We're good. So
Yeah.
I'm laughing at the guy because his fingers got cut off by the shiny boomerang thrown by the little kid there. That's right. Okay, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. But,
Does that make sense? Or
It does. I would say that the sort of the four main roles are Max, the gyro captain. That's
Yep.
his credited name. And then Humongous and Wes. And I think Humongous and the sort of the fifth one would be
the
Papagallo.
feral kid.
Well,
No,
yeah.
I'd say the feral kid.
Yeah.
Like he's the one that actually forces, because Papagallo, he does what he's supposed to do in a kind of pompous and swaggery way.
Yeah.
But I don't see him as important as the feral kid.
Yeah. No,
Even though all the
that's true.
kid did was grunt and scream and
But that role gave them actually. He had a couple nice moments, like when the moment that Max gave him the music box toy, the little happy birthday toy.
Oh yeah.
That
but
was
that's why
that
I
was
also
that.
think he's. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I was just going to say that's that breathing that we always talk about. Is that
Mm-hmm.
it gave the movie a chance to breathe? It was and Papagallo was sort of blah 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 in the background and
Yeah.
covering some important stuff, like this is going to be our plan and stuff. But he totally sort of the sound almost cuts out
Yep.
for him, and it's just those two guys alone. Just Max and the kid, and for about a minute. And he sort of fake throws the thing to him, and then he for real throws it to him. And it's such a nice little breathing moment. And then they cut back, and then the sound levels come up, and you can hear what Papagallo is talking about.
Yeah.
But so the five major roles. Of course, none of them are women, but it's the two good guys, the two bad guys, and the feral kid. What I was going to say about Papagallo, he's sort of like the functionary. Every movie has one of these, the mayor in Jaws, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I think he's more the. I think his stock is the capital M morals guy.
Yeah.
Like he is the sort of the moral voice, the super ego,
Yeah.
to get Freudian of the film. Like he's very, what about dignity and what about this? And he's very much that capital M morals sort of keeper of the. Go ahead. Yeah.
And a bit of an asshole. As well. I mean, he's very much
kind of
he would be
pompous
he would be a politician probably, like one of those family first, who has a lover on the side. He'd be that kind of guy because he doesn't
think
exactly
he was that bad because he was like, I mean, he was what he was speaking to, trying to keep the community together, keeping them like a pompous guy, but not. It was like he's Laertes, handing out lame, bad advice.
Maybe that's
and
not
having
fair.
no value. And definitely willing to sacrifice. He is the one who sort of calls Max out on his SHIT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time, I sort of wonder if he thought he was going to be the driver of the tanker truck, and then he thinks, "Oh no, I'd be dead. I'll get him to do it." And then when Mel refuses, he goes back to it. That's sort of what I was. I was wondering about that.
No, because he's the one. Like even when they were talking about the plan, you can overhear him going, "Okay, I'm gonna go this way." Because at that time, Mel had already buggered off and got pulled back.
Yeah.
He's like the Han Solo where Princess Leia had to go rescue him. It's like he buggered off with his money and he had to go be rescued.
Yeah.
In a way, he's the catalyst for other people to grow. But when Papagallo is telling everyone, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do. You guys are all going to scatter. I'm going to go. I'm the one with the fuel. They're going to come after me." He's laying the track for the I'll be the one. I'll be the bait. to pull everyone off of you, and you're all going to escape. And then when Mel Gibson comes out, I'm the only one who could drive that truck. Pappagallo still goes with them. Like, there has to be another vehicle with him, and he goes with them. So, no, I saw him as a hero. Not the hero, but definitely heroic. All his behavior, again, a little pompous, but all his behavior kind of tracks with the capital M moral, but not a hypocrite or anything. He doesn't... the captain, not talking the captain... the gyro captain, but the other captain, I could almost see him more in that sort of smooth talking politician. I can go negotiate. It's
yeah.
Do you recognize the movie you're in?
The older man.
Did you see
Yeah.
Buddy with the mask?
Yeah.
You paying attention at all?
So to answer your...
I think that... Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
just to answer the earlier thing. So I think
about
that
performance.
I think there are performances, and the Wes character and Humongous. I think they both really bring it. Humongous. I was desperate for him to take off the mask and reveal Werner Herzog beneath it, but turns out that he's a Swedish bodybuilder. But he's got a few of those.
Bodybuilder, you say? I didn't see that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that was his job, I guess. I don't know. But so I think they both. Okay, here's another thing: is that for me, you and I and all the people watching right now, we've seen enough movies to really appreciate a good bad guy, like one that's genuinely threatening, one that's not ridiculously omnipotent. Although there's a few moments here, or all-knowing, all-seeing, can predict what the hero is going to do. There's so many irritating. Mostly, they come across as irritating, or just something that you have to deal with, or some sort of
like
barrier.
In the Old Guard, the Martin Shkreli knockoff, character, where you're like kind of going, "Well, you're irritating, and you should be in front of some sort of parliamentary committee." Yeah. But...
or Lex. That was the new Lex Luthor and the newer Supermans,
Jesse
Buddy
Eisenberg.
There. Yeah, like it's. I can probably, count on both hands the bad guys that actually made me think, whoa, that guy's scary. And these two guys, I think they do bring it. The scariest thing about the Humongous character too is that he pretends to be the voice of reason.
Kjell Nilsson.
Yes. And
he pretends to be the voice of reason.
He's like, "Oh, I'll be kind. We'll let you go. You'll have the run of, we'll let you escape." That sort of thing. and he's not. And then they do one thing. They get the truck, and he said, "That's it. You've betrayed. You've disobeyed me." And he's got sort of a itchy trigger finger, anger issues, whatever. But it's those two guys are genuinely, I think, threatening and well done
and cruel.
Yes, yeah.
That cruelty. When the Wes character, the motorcyclist who lost his lover and wants revenge, and apparently has focused it all on Mad Max.
Yeah, despite the fact that it's the feral boy that takes him out.
It's just, but. It's funny. Some of these things that make no sense still work in the context of the film. It's so crazy that it's just, sure, I'm buying that. But he buggers off for a bit, and it's like, you have disobeyed me.
Yes.
And so when he comes up, his second in command is chained up like a dog on his thing, on his ridiculous car with the two posts to carry other human beings.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, because that's so many of these images you see in Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, it's like, kind of, in part, how do you remember this film? I remember watching Fury Road, like we went and saw it. Went and saw it when, you could go to
in
theaters.
a movie theater.
Yeah, in a theater. Do you think Fury Road is the movie Miller... Like, it's almost, and I don't mean this in a rip, I don't mean this as a knock on him, but it's almost like, boy, this is the the Road Warrior I would have made if I only had the budget. And let's go back to the budget. Like, so much of that stuff. Now, some of it was technological.
70 million.
Like, I'll probably find out that was only 60 million, even though. Yeah. But you look at Fury Road, and a lot of it's the same, way over the top, crazy stuff. Not a lot of, like, it's not a lot of dialogue. Mm-mm. Like, there's just not that much talking in any of these movies.
Nope.
But part of me was, do you think, like, yeah, is there that kind of similarity, or is it just me?
So sorry that
okay,
this
yeah,
was the movie.
My mega preamble.
Sorry.
Okay, let me. Do you
this was the movie he would have made.
Do you think that Fury Road is the movie Miller would have made then, like when he made Road Warrior, if he could have?
You know, I think it was fairly impressive for its time. Like, I don't know what the chances of being able to make a fire tornado on the screen, or swing a guy from playing guitar from a truck, you know,
that has a
speaker, an amplifier.
With
the fire. Yes,
like it's a wall of speakers, but there's a flamethrower coming out of the guitar.
Was that optional for that model that year? I'm not sure. But I think it was, for its time, I think it was fairly impressive. It had very much a Star Wars on Tatooine vibe, I think. And
absolutely. And a lot of Western tropes.
And super distinctive. Yeah, I was going to bring up that Western too, but it had a distinctive look. Like, you can show a minute of clips from this movie, and there's no other movie it could be. Like, it was distinctive. It was distinctly Australian. It was shot about 8 hours next door, but about an 8-hour drive from where my son was working last year, and deep in the desert.
In Saskatchewan.
Yeah, basically. But next door. That's a bus ride. That's a $2 bus ride. But that's the thing that kills me, is it's so over the top. It's so Australian. Most of the talent, I think, was Australian. Pappagallo was an English actor. The one who played
Bruce
the feral
Spence
kid
was originally from New Zealand.
Yeah, well, that's a helicopter ride. But the feral kid is currently a jeweler in Sydney. Apparently, he's gotten out of film, but.
Virginia Hay is still working. They've all done their time here. I don't know how deep you went. That Archie Whiteley, the birdie, the only time you actually, we can get into the gender stuff in a second and the sexuality stuff in a second.
Yeah.
But
good.
Archie Whiteley, the blonde woman, one of the good people. The only one he shows any kind of skin, but nothing really, not lascivious. It's only noteworthy because no one else was.
Yeah.
Like on that, in that, like in the good guy camp, in the Tatooine Luke Skywalker camp. But she, I guess she was the daughter of a big Australian artist. She died young, 20 years ago, but still was like kind of, as you read and you're trying to catch up. Jelly Duck, this is a great point. That said, and this might be news to you, Jelly Duck. Mel Gibson, although he's an American citizen, he's a natural born American citizen. I think he was born in the United States. He grew up in Australia. He was raised in Australia. His Australian accent in this is 100% like natural, earned. But that is, he had a. I don't know about you, Jim. Like, it's still, I can't believe I've forgotten this line. You want to get out of here? You talk to me.
Or didn't he whistle
such
with
a great line? Oh yeah, I just can't do
he didn't do his fingers, right? He just went Or what, I can't
No, I
do
think
it.
he did his fingers. Like,
Oh, did he? Okay.
But I just can't do it. So
Yeah,
you know,
no, neither
Let's
can I.
just talk about the line.
Yeah.
But yeah, where the hell was I?
And
Where
that's
was I
almost
going
one of
with
the
that?
first.
Oh,
That's almost well, no. That's I was going to say that was one of the first lines he
Gallipoli.
said.
Oh,
No, in
he
terms of lines
spoke
in the movie,
oh yeah, no, he spoke a lot.
a little bit. The first thing
Yeah.
he said, I think, was "booby trap" and to the gyro captain.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, there's not tons of quotable lines in here, but I think mostly it's just the action and the visuals are so strong. Like,
Yeah.
just
and like being willing, like not a like I mean close-ups, but a lot of medium shots, a lot of long shots, and a lot of big wide. Let's make sure we capture the action.
Yeah, but there's some really neat, like Mel Gibson just standing there looking out, and there's a smokestack behind him, just the the blue sky, and there was another one where before he gets engaged with both parties, he's looking down at the camp from the top of that hill, and the beauty
Like
of the
he's looking at a couple of banthas and sand people,
there you go,
or
but-
Mos Eisley. Never a den of
Goodbye.
iniquity and villainy or whatever.
But it's having that space, for Star Wars it would be Tunisia or whatever, but here it's actually New South Wales. It's the far corner of New South Wales, but you have that almost that
Where
bowl.
Mundi
Yeah.
actually exists.
Oh yeah. I was looking
that
up-
thing,
I
that
was like,
Mundi lookout sign, and I wonder if that exists. Well, I'll be damned. In that it's not a province, it's a territory, right? Or a state.
State would be it would be New
State.
South Wales state.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is 800,000 square miles, so it's about a quarter bigger than Manitoba, if you can believe that.
It's like taking a slice of Saskatchewan.
Oh, it's the place is massive. I drove an entire day from one end to the other, and it was in the same state. Like I didn't leave. We went from basically Byron Bay to Sydney,
Yeah.
all the same day. Like the whole thing, just coastline. But one of the interesting things, the school bus had on its marquee or whatever the sign on the front of the school bus said tea tree. And then some of the words were, some of the letters were gone, and it just say Tea Tree AZ. And I actually paused to look it up. It's Tea Tree Plaza, which is a shopping center outside of Adelaide. So that
Oh,
was
cool.
kind of-
So there's
kind of-
little moments of verisimilitude.
Yeah. But just having that great bowl to observe, and the space and those open highways, that's part of the luxury of the movie. Is
This
just
is very
having
well-
having the space of like no trees, nothing, and you can just blow stuff up, and you can look at stuff from afar, and you can see what's happening. Like everyone's peeling away from the camp; they've broken their siege.
Yeah.
That was one of the luxuries of the movie. I think was the place where it was shot.
Well, here, let me. Well, I'm going to ask you this, but I think it's time. First of all, was there what other movies did it remind you of? Like, I know it's, and it is unique, but while you're thinking on that,
Sure.
I'm quickly, you mull on what other movies it reminds you of, while I look out to everyone and go, you know what? You can hit that like button right now. And to make sure you don't miss an episode, please subscribe. And if you're subscribed, smash the little bell. Ring the bell. Ding, 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 ding. Ooh, that's an effect I've got to find. Ding that bell, ring that bell, and so that you can be notified and the channel can grow. And feel free to share if there's anyone else in your scene that that just loves talking about movies, because that's what we're about here. All right, I think that's about it. So
Somebody
Jim,
else chimed in. Curtis Judd says hi, everyone.
Whoa! Hello, Mr. Judd. How are you, sir? To those who don't know, Curtis Judd is, I aspire to have the production quality. He's a sound and video and lighting YouTuber, technical guy. I aspire to have that quality, and I'm a regular chatter in his live streams, and in general, yeah, Curtis is the man. Anyway, thanks for coming by, Curtis. Thanks for dropping in. And yes, Curtis is of a similar, maybe he's a little younger than I am. I'm 53. So yeah, maybe he's younger, but he's of similar vintage. He may have actually seen The Road Warrior when it came out as well. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. We got a like. We got our like on the board. Thank you, Jim. Ahmed, representing in Kuwait. Okay, so what do we? I think it's time. Okay, so Jim, yeah, what other movies did it remind you of?
You know, I was actually working on that, and I know you like to ask that, and I was sort of thinking the opposite way around. Like, what have I seen that's come out of this? And there's so much post-apocalyptic stuff that's come after this. I'm not suggesting that this was the first one, but this was one for me. One of probably the first ones that I saw as a young man.
It may not have started the genre, but it was
but it was fairly. It was a big movie for me. Yeah. I just I compare it to other. I have to say, I'm currently reading a novel.
We are going to discuss this.
Oh my gosh!
I'm just going to pin that briefly, but anyway, sorry.
We gotta
chat about that. But anyway, continue, Jim.
I'm reading a novel called Station 11, which is written in the last 5 years. It made a fairly big impact. Apparently, HBO is making a series of it, and it's post-apocalyptic, but it goes fairly quickly. Like it goes from right when the Georgian flu hits, and then. And it's written by a young Canadian novelist, and then it goes 20 years later, so there's a bit of a time jump. So it doesn't really deal with these things. It doesn't deal with, say, zombies or anything like that, but just all the parallels of anything post-apocalyptic. I used to watch a lot of The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead, and I sort of compare this, not that this is a zombie movie, but just comparing the sort of different portrayals of any kind of dystopian future, and I think this one really stands out as fairly unique. It's a hard question. I did think about that, but there's certain Star Wars-y things about it. There's you can say that the gyro. I know you were saying that Max was a bit of a Han Solo character. You can sort of argue that the gyro captain's a bit of a goofball kind of Han Solo figure, a little bit. Yeah. But aside from
that, he certainly actually changes and helps versus Max, who is basically not along for the ride. Like, he does drive. He's a character with agency, but yeah, definitely he's not changing. He's a broken man who likes it broken.
Yeah.
Now that I'm wondering,
how about you?
Mostly what I saw were tropes, like especially a lot of Western tropes.
Westerns.
And although he's not, it's interesting. You could walk away. Like, I know now, mind you, this is going back almost 40 years, but I thought of Mad Max as in the subsequent movies is the man with no name, saving the townsfolk and that kind of thing. But I thought there was a lot of Western tropes, some Star Wars, but I'm really more like, when I think of post-apocalyptic, there's been lots of them. The Omega Man was a post-apocalyptic, movie. But I think this was maybe not the first, but one of the first, what I would call the post-apocalyptic fantasy. And And I really do mean it's a fantasy, and it played to us as teens, but a fantasy of, if there was I would be able to roam just to be this badass maniac out in the wild, absolutely no restrictions, and it kind of glamorized that in a weird way. Yeah. And I think it was one of the first of like a real 80s thing, especially there's that kind of anti-government sort of theme, especially at the beginning. Oil's running out. Like, they didn't talk about a nuclear war. It was no moment. It was more like just a collapse of civilization and a general vibe that, well, that's because civilization isn't necessarily a positive thing. And so I thought there was a bit of a fantasy kind of aspect to it that I thought was, like, I'd have to do more research, but that sort of seemed to be a theme within 80s apocalyptic movies. That kind of, boy, what would it be like if we just all had a bunch of guns and could go crazy?
Yeah.
Now, Richard here brings up that he thought Dune was one with similarities. I'm wondering, Richard, if you can maybe elaborate on that. And are we talking about the Dune, like with like the book or the movie? Help me out here. David Lynch.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Lynch's Dune. I mean, well, there was that sci-fi. Sci-fi did like they redid Dune, like a whole mini series covering the first 3 books. So
and Denis Villeneuve is, of course, remaking it. So
which I'm looking forward to.
Lots of laughs.
If you could elaborate a bit more on that, Richard, that would be great. And then before we move on, we get a little deeper. Yes. Wow, you haven't seen it. Curtis. What's up with that?
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? It's interesting. Would you say, like, Curtis, it's an interesting thing. If you do go and watch it, like, all teasing aside, if you do go watch it, it would be interesting if you chime in the comments later or in a later live stream. Because you, like Jim and I, we're watching something we saw when we were teens, when we were really into this kind of film. Whereas now you would be seeing it, because when I'm watching it now, I'm both seeing it in my 53-year-old man eyes, but also still that teenager still exists in me who saw it and had quite an effect on. So it'd be fascinating to hear from you if you do see it. In some ways, it's like if we were talking about... it's not as gory as I remember, but there's a few key moments where it's like, wow, that has some impact.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, kind of fascinating. Oh, but he has seen Dune.
There you go.
There we go. Ooh. Okay, you have seen it. Where, you know what, Richard? I still want you to elaborate on this. But maybe we should. One of these doesn't hold up, Jim. Maybe we should be looking at David Lynch's Dune.
Oh, yeah.
This is something to think about. And in the meantime, Curtis will report back if he does see The Road Warrior. Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. Although it came out as The Road Warrior, didn't it, when we were kids?
Yeah.
Like the way I read it, doing my research, it was everywhere. Okay, so let's, first of all, the Bechdel test. As is our want on Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, we are now actually, and we'll come back to this in a second, Richard, we are now actually, we're kind of taking almost like a fair trade coffee kind of view of films. And I'm kind of wondering, because the Bechdel test actually, as a result of this comic artist, last name Bechdel, I want to say her first name's Janine or Jenny, but I'm not 100% sure. She developed it within a comic from like in the 80s. And who knows, it could have been one of these films that just like kind of, all right, enough's enough. But does it pass the Bechdel test? No. And of course, all the major names behind the scenes. This is not a diverse film in any way, shape, or form. Much, I would say, in some ways, very similar to when we looked at Strange Brew, Jim. An early 80s artifact where it's like, well, I know there's indigenous people here, but... well, don't they have their own films? That's not the film we're making. Like be unaware, unaware of the lack of diversity because it's just never a question asked. I'd say we'd categorize it that way. 1982. Not a good excuse, a bad excuse, more of an explanation. But yes, if the Bechdel test or any kind of diversity when you're picking your films is important, this would not be one for you.
I wonder if that came up in conversations for Beyond Thunderdome, which was Mad Max 3. It'd be like, who are we going to cast as the woman? Oh my God, what haven't we done? Tina Turner, let's see if she's available. Yeah. We got to cover our asses.
Well, and she was huge then. That was crazy. Okay, so Richard saying loved the book series but hated the movie. Mad Max reminded me of the movie Dune mainly because of the desert setting and the both quirky yet menacing characters. Yeah, I see that. And although I don't know, Richard, you'll have to tell us. I would say it diverges. I'm seeing that comparison. I would say it diverges in that I still don't. I didn't hate the Road Warrior then, and I don't hate it now. I can't say I hated Dune back in the day, but it was one of those. It was a disappointment. More on the that's disappointing. You know, you're it's like
so tricky though. Like it's such a. When I read the book as a kid, and I remember just being like, "This isn't typical." Like it wasn't the sort of the novelized. I remember once as a kid, I for some reason decided to read the novelization of Krull. I was desperate for reading material. I was probably about 12 or something like that, and I quickly threw that over the shoulder. I just. Threw that in the garbage, but yeah, or maybe it might have been a gift or something like that. But yeah. When you're
okay, sorry.
When you're a young one and you.
I shouldn't.
Okay, this has been Jim and Rob analyze the movie. No,
this has got to go. If we do a highlight reel, Jim, that'll be the me laughing hashtag the novelization of Krull. Although now we got to find it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Start doing book reviews. Does it hold up?
But when you read Dune, like it was a fully the protagonists weren't exactly Luke Skywalker type protagonists, and the antagonists they might have been a little bit more varied, or they might have had layers and things. So and not everything was typical, and they would kill characters that you think would last the whole book and that sort of thing. So I was very much when I read it, I was just like, whoa, what is he doing here? And it was a good thing for somebody who's just getting into science fiction to read, I think.
Well, it had a Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The politics and the action and even the worms, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, and it's slightly unfilmable, I would say, but that hasn't stopped people from trying to film it. So
I mean, here, don't mind me, everyone. I got to find focus, but you'll notice I'm getting slicker at it.
Nope. Well, while you're doing that, I'll that earlier question you asked, and it took me a while to key into it, but. And I'm thinking a lot of times when you're saying, does this movie remind you of other movies? It might be the setting, and it might be just the hemisphere in which it was shot. But I was just thinking of two movies. I don't know if you've ever seen or if we've ever talked about the early Don Johnson classic based on the Harlan Ellison A Boy and His Dog. Which
another
I have not
post-apocalyptic stumbling, The Road, except...
Have not seen for a long time.
Depressing, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and that was like a nuclear apocalypse kind of thing, though, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah. But it's got a little bit of an ending that I don't think. Anyway, and the other one was Quiet Earth. If you remember the New Zealand one, where the guy wakes up.
Very sci-fi.
That's totally different than that. Yeah. It might just be like and that was a New Zealand movie that I've recently watched. Actually, how did I watch that now? But anyway, I quite enjoyed it. So.
Let's take a moment to comment. I don't know about you, Jim. I was a school patrol, and I remember seeing at the Met, They'd have
my gosh.
morning and matinee screenings every now and then for school patrols. And what I got to see was first time I ever saw like Godzilla and some of those other Japanese monster movies.
Oh yeah.
And apparently, Richard, by then they had moved to Crawl.
Wow.
And look at that. Poor Jim.
Yeah.
Jelly Duck loves you. And we love you, Jelly Duck. Yeah, Crawl. Wow.
Crawl.
Yeah,
I got to go see. I got to go see.
Although we can't really ask, does it hold up? It's Crawl.
No. Finland national team versus your Winnipeg Jets. That's what we usually got. Hockey tickets. Yeah,
the Moscow Dynamo. It's like, wow, we're really seeing the dash. No, we're seeing Tier 3. Yeah.
What's happening?
Okay. Well, what? Now, here's the one thing. Now, like, I'm gonna go back to. Okay, it's not really Bechdel test stuff, but there was a. Again, back to that, like, Jim, there was like a conflict. Here, I need to find my mouse. There was like a conflict. So you got the good guys. And now I'm wondering if, like, this reminded me of Alien, actually, in the way that they, like, if you looked at the bad guys, okay, it's all BDSM fetish wear. And that's a conscious choice. That wasn't it looks weird. They went with that. It's also, you had the second in charge, the number 2 bad guy, Wes, avenging his boyfriend, which to see that on screen in 1982 is different than seeing it on screen like, the old guard.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, it reminded me of Alien, where they consciously, for those of you who didn't know, like, I mean, the writer has been interviewed on this. In Alien, thanks for dropping in there, Curtis. I really appreciate you checking out the stream, checking out our show. Have a great rest of your day, and report back on your experience with the Road Warrior.
Your assignment. Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's your homework. Okay, so back to Alien. Alien, they've spoken about it. They made the creatures a homophobic nightmare. Like the creatures, the way they would the phallicness of the thing that comes out of the mouth, the fact that the guys get impregnated after this thing impregnates them through the mouth, and that and that was like a conscious. They're like, oh, nothing will creep guys out more than if we do this, and it's really effective. Now, when that came out, 79, 80, Alien? Right around there. Like, I was terrified. I probably wasn't quite thinking of it on that level, but it's still, that imagery's there. Like, I mean, working on me anyway. But here, it seemed to be, like, I remember being, like, I mean, they're obviously the bad guys, and I'm 15, so I'm obviously thinking about sex. And that was a time when calling somebody FAG was just a part of our vernacular, as idiots, as young idiots. Like now it's like, I had to wonder, like, everything, the outside is all sex and gender bending and kinky AF, and it's just, and a lot of skin, and they are the threat, and part of the threat is that whole domination. Like, it's this weird BDSM. It's like a BDSM club let out, and then here, motorcycles for everybody. And I'm kind of wondering what you think of that, what people watching think of that. Comment in the chat or down below. But it was like, it's the thing. If I could ask George Miller something, I'd be like, hey, what's with that? Because even the bad guys, I'm not saying the good guys didn't either, but predominantly the bad guys wore makeup. Like makeup, eyeliner, the whole bit.
War paint and stuff.
War paint, and the colored hair, and so it's almost. And remember, it's the early '80s. You had, I don't think Twisted Sister had come out yet. Like as a band, didn't make it big.
Yeah.
And Tipper Gore wasn't the force she was quite yet, but
Yeah.
we're already starting to see that kind of, the glam rock folks are turning into the big hair bands.
Yeah.
And that kind of idea of, and that, so I consciously chose the Hall & Oates for the other folks because they're very, yes, exactly, Jelly Duck. That
Yeah.
leather and latex and kink.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I mean,
like, I
it's
think if you did it now, like, it was even different in Fury Road. If you
Yeah.
did it now, like, I mean, yeah, you know what? Any gay person now would be, what the fuck?
yeah.
Why are we the bad guys?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But now, mind you, was there an alien thing going on there? It's like, how do we get under people's skin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the same time, it wasn't like they're the villains, they're the bad guys, but not necessarily in quite, say, a classic anti-gay, oh, he's gay, therefore he's a child molester.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Like what, if they made the choice and it was an obvious choice and
yeah,
you sort of have to look twice because the boyfriend of Wes had this sort of overly blonde hair and the sort of I
when
almost have
first
to
saw him
look
driving up,
twice.
the girl behind, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, are we going to see cleavage and leather, and then it isn't, and it's
And
it's
the
this guy,
zip,
you know,
like the chest is exposed. The boyfriend's
Yep.
chest is exposed too. So, sort of an interesting choice. That they're bad guys is maybe that goes along with their the movie's sense of what chaos is, or what basically all the bad guys you can group into some form of alternative lifestyle where there was at the time
the forces of at the time
Yeah.
it would have been degenerates.
well at the time, and we're talking about Australia as well, which is not
I think,
exactly
an elected official can still say, well, the Sheila
Yeah.
over there. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a little unfair to them.
Sheila. But yeah, no, it's an interesting question. It was an interesting choice for the movie. I don't think I'd maybe seen anything like that before. Maybe, actually the Boston Strangler was on TCM last week, and Henry Fonda, the character, I was just watching a clip of it. I ended up PVRing it, but he actually goes into a really big fancy gay club. It's more like a dinner theater, and everyone's drinking sort of martinis and things like that, and they all have sort of mid-Atlantic accents, and you can Henry Ford says one thing, and one guy he's questioning says, well, that was cruel, and he apologizes for it. And I thought, and this was filmed in '69, and I thought, well, that's kind of interesting too. So I'm by no means a scholar in this kind of subject.
And I'm also thinking, what was it, Cruisin'?
Yes,
had already come out.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not, like, in some ways, it's so over the top, it's so comical that it isn't quite, although, like, when everyone in if you look at the good guys, they're all coded straight.
Yes.
Even the one on the border, where he's kind of fabulous, let's say the gyro captain, even right down to the character name, but the gyro captain, where he's got the purple scarf and the pink runners, and it's almost like he's wearing capris. By the end, that's a straight guy taking charge and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And he even becomes, like, in the post at the end voiceover, he becomes the leader. Because, of course, the very straight, say the name again, Gagapalo?
Papagallo.
Papagallo, thank you.
Yeah.
Very, like, just uber straight. Richard says, good point in the bad guys and their hair, clothing, etc. It was the Reagan, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Edwin Meese. And also moral, like, there's two moral panics of the era: pornography, and that kind of weird alliance between the right-wing family values types, and I'm thinking the anti-pornography feminist. Dworkin. Cannot remember her first name.
Andrea?
So there was that kind of, I think so. I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure. But her and again, the Mies, like that community, you know,
I think they covered some of
then
that.
the other one was Satanists. Remember,
Okay,
we were
yeah.
like our whole teenage lives are being run by Satanists and, you know, crazy cults.
One,
you know,
one segment on 60 Minutes about Dungeons and Dragons, and your father
yes.
never shuts up about it. Jesus.
Now this is where, like, I mean, you know, at times, and I've said it before, I'm about to say it now, and I suspect I'll say it in the future. I've referred to my old man as the old bastard, and he was a hard ass when I was growing up. But that was one thing I'll give him credit for. He's like, I never thought that D&D was weird. Didn't think you hanging out with. Remember, we'd go to Brian Pendry's.
Yeah.
And he's like, I knew nothing weird was happening because he'd come home and tell me all about it, no matter how boring it was. Every detail. You just wouldn't shut up.
And then the dragon flew off with the paladin, and then the thief took it, and then he rolled a 12. And then...
Yeah, my character's a chaotic good dwarf fighter.
And your father was like, tell me more.
Can't even quite. It's like Bob's Burgers' dad. You know, it's like, oh God,
Yeah.
shut up. Well, wait a sec. This isn't costing me any money, and you leave.
So while we're just
oh yes, Richard just escaped from New York. Another post-apocalyptic with one of the bad guys stereotypically gay. I'm wondering though. You're absolutely right, Richard. It's that coding. Is it? You know, there's going to be another. I see another interview in our future, Jim.
Oh, yeah?
But anyway, what you had reacted. What were you? What was
well,
your?
that would be a good one for Does It Hold Up? Escape from New York.
Yes, brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I credit Richard. That's
gooders,
Richard.
yes.
I'm not.
Richard comes through again.
Snake Plissken.
Do you think, Jim, there's a couple other kind of questions that occurred to me as it was going.
Sure.
That I was really kind of, how would you, like in the end, I did kind of say, you know what, as far as genre goes, and we've talked about, and I think this might be an opportunity to talk about what makes for an actual Western. But in the end, I kind of thought, I looked at this as it's a post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure. Mm-hmm. And although nowadays no one says, oh, that's an action movie, that's an adventure movie, I do think there's a distinct difference. And I would say, but I wanted to ask you, like, when you look at this movie and think about its genre, would you, like, do you think of it as more action or adventure, or do you not make a distinction between those two?
You know, adventure is more like there's some video somewhere that my when we were in Hobbiton in New Zealand last summer, there's that line that Martin Freeman. Yes, I'm going to place.
And Jim drops.
No, but this is significant because it was down the very path that Martin Freeman's character goes, and he's waving
on his adventure.
And he goes, "I'm going on an adventure," and my daughter did it, and I said, "No, that's not the way you did it. That's not the way you do it. This is how you do it." And I went off, and she goes, "Dad, not in front of all the people." I'm like, "I'm going on an adventure," and she filmed me for it. Anyway, so that's to me, adventure is more where you have it's not as well. This one was kind of pragmatic, wasn't it? It's just like, let's get the fuel out of here, and it all revolved around gas. So that sort of takes away from the adventure side for me, just because it's so practical. Adventure, I guess, is more, going to look for treasure or going to kill the dragon or what have you. This was, I think, more of an action movie. I mean, I'm not going to die on that hill, but
no. Well, that's why I wanted to ask.
I mean, it's an interesting distinction, but I would call it more of an action movie. It's very, you're basically the whole movie is like, let's go over here. No, let's go over here. No, we have to go back here. Let's go back again, and let's, leave. And it's sort of a series of drives, isn't it? But and they're all headed off to the Sunshine Coast there.
Always a weird sort of, you know, wherever, usually these movies are like, you've been cast out of Eden. In here, it's like, no, we can go back. It's like, I don't think that's the way it works, but sure, whatever.
I think there might be people there already.
Yeah. If it's any good, people are there.
if you have the skills to refine gas after the you know, you're going to be in demand, right? You have a marketable skill there.
I mean, I would say, and maybe there's maybe like, I'll give you my brief shtick on again, like this is, and I'm wondering if I even bought it then. But definitely now I'm like, yeah, that's not the way that apocalypse would work. The second you have one complicated part that you don't have a spare for, it's like, okay, that thing dies. You know, like even where's this gang getting his gas from? Like it's the never ending magazine, except that these things never run out of gas, although they're all desperate to get gas. It's like, well, where's your depot, buddy?
And they drive around in circles for a lot for people that are trying to preserve gas, don't they?
Spitting out constantly and forever using nitrous oxide. Like they're all kind of, you're not very efficient.
No.
and in the, there they are in the sorry, the jam ran out, man. There they are in a fort, a little mini castle, with the wall, and they're using fire to defend themselves because they have the settlers have more gas than anything else. So they're the big flame throwers. And their walls are made of tires. And I'm like, why has this not just been a tire fire that went out of control in 5 minutes?
Once again, it's like the cop movie where the cops are horrible cops, you know? Or,
you know it, Jim.
You know, but...
or you know it, Jelly Duck.
A couple other things that I wanted to bring up too, and in terms of does it hold up, and the one thing, and it's been a while since I saw Mad Max, and I might have only seen it once, but the one thing that sort of made me uncomfortable a little bit, and of course I'm not going to defend it, is the scene where the couple and they were sort of watching them in the distance, and they're caught by the gang, and the woman is raped and murdered, and the guy's made to watch.
That's what I was referring to earlier, but first time I probably ever saw that on film. Yeah,
and that was. I mean, I'm not going to defend the choice of putting it in. It's it's sort of what takes it away. When you're talking about an adventure, it would be sort of this fun punk rock kind of exercise. Except you can't call it fun when it's got that.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it sort of tells you what you're dealing with, and you see it on the face of the gyro captain where he sees it happen. He goes, "Ooh," and you can tell from his expression that he's to be trusted. Like he is a good guy.
That he's got that's his, not save the cat moment, but well, at least he feels bad for the cat that just got run over in the road.
But at the same time, he gets a little bit groomy with that, with the blonde girl,
his girlfriend,
who becomes his girlfriend, I guess,
like immediately.
Yeah, and he's a bit pushy and a bit that sort of like he's a bit creepy that way. He's got some nudity on his helicopter even, and it's all right.
Well, again, going back to the not lasciviousness. I don't think it's lascivious.
Mm-hmm.
It's too hustler-esque.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I there, and this is not to. Like it's definitely the most disturbing scene.
Yeah.
I didn't read him. I read him as creepy, but in a harmless way, which is, I think, what the filmmakers intended. And she seemed to have way more agency. She was young, but not, she's she's the medical person dealing with the people who are getting arrows, like steel arrows stuck in them. So I thought,
and she's good. She's the only one that really deals with the feral kid as well. Like they have a connection as well.
Yeah. And she does. She's the one. She has agency. She was going to join them. They were going to bug her off, and then she's like, "Nah, I got to stay. This is my family." Like, So I didn't quite read it that way.
Yeah.
Partly because I read her as older.
Yeah.
Too old to be groomed, I guess would be the way. And partly Bruce Spence just has an unfortunate look.
Yeah.
That I think he's married. Anyone be. You're creeping on me. I'm like, I'm just smiling.
Of course, he was in Occupation, right? Remember we talked about that. He was the alien, although you couldn't tell because he was all under prosthetics, but he was the alien leader or the squadron leader or something like that. So, one of our few repeat performers so far, I think. But the
database is building. We'll be able to start doing some cross referencing.
Oh yeah.
Well, what about Max? Would you call him an anti-hero? I'm not sure he is that.
He's too, one of the things, and it sort of made sense after the fact, is that once he gets the drop on the gyro captain, Max gets the drop on the gyro captain at the very start, and where the gyro captain had an arrow trained on him, and then he sort of reverses it, and so he has him tied up in his car. And he's sort of jury-rigged a gun, and the dog has a bone. The dog's pretty cool, actually, I have to say. The dog's got a bone that's attached to the trigger, and that's what's keeping, and it's pointed right at his face. Yeah. And then later on, he kind of cracks open the shotgun, and he goes, "Oh, it was empty all this time." and there was a look. There was a look where there was a rabbit or a kangaroo or something that went by the thing and by the window, and the dog looked at it, and the gyro captain goes, "Oh God, you're going to shoot me!" And then he goes, "Oh, good dog." And they show Max, and Max kind of smirks, and he smirks because he knows that there's no danger of him getting his head blown off because the gun's empty. And that was sort of a nice moment that you realize the true meaning of afterwards. Mel Gibson here, it's he had that Year of Living Dangerously, Gallipoli, The Road Warrior. This is his.
It's a bonbon.
This is
candy.
This is his time, and he's still got the looks. He's still got the
anti-Semitic, racist, disturbingly sexist, misogynist outbursts.
Pre sort of Hollywood stuff, right? There was, I believe, Year of Living Dangerously was an Australian film, I believe. This was an Australian film. Gallipoli was an Australian film, and then it sort of, and then he got on Crave. You can find all 4 Lethal Weapons. I have not much desire to watch those, but and sadly, no Year of Living Dangerously, no Mad Max, no Road Warrior. I mean, but before he sort of got back to Hollywood, I'd say that was sort of his height, the height of his powers. Looked great, could carry a movie. Like I identified with him as the hero immediately. Like you're drawn to him, right?
Yeah.
And great choice. Like he can carry it. He's charismatic. And he was probably, for a lot of people at the time, new. Like he was probably a new face, right? And it was that was one of the highlights. Seeing him hitting his stride again.
Well, yeah, maybe it's hitting his stride. I think that was like, this is where you're kind of going, wow, this guy's going to go somewhere. Because he had great roles after that. And, he developed his directing chops, and you can say there's many solid criticisms, especially of the history of The Patriot or Braveheart. But wow, solid movie making, solid heroic, epic movie making. man, the guy really knows how to make a movie. Apocalypto has, there's these bad history and the ending where it's like, wait, what are you saying here? Oh, come on, man. Can you just crack open a history book that isn't from your xenophobic
crazy dad.
Exactly. Extremist Catholic, pre-Vatican II Catholic dad. But what do you think, though? But as far as the character goes, I'm not sure it's like that character. It's weird. Because the character's in an arrested state of development. He's he loses his family in Mad Max. He ends up in the wasteland, and I didn't quite figure out how to write it, and I didn't think it was fundamental to the synopsis. But part of that voiceover is to say, and he had lost his family, so he went wild. He's like a rabid dog, but not rabid. Like, he doesn't need to be put down, but it's like he's lost a part of his humanity, and he's whatever's going on with him. And that just it's almost like he went out to the wasteland and he's just become like this thing of the wasteland. But that means all of a sudden you get a character you can never grow. It's like, well, what are you doing, man? Like, you just, are you a force of nature? Or you like, what's your deal? Like, he's forever just helping someone else now get out of the wasteland, try and, but it's like, is that your mission? Or... Because it's not really your mission. You're just forever out for yourself, and you're in these scenarios where... that's not an anti-hero either.
No. And in taking it, too, Are you dancing? Or sorry.
I can't hear a damn thing.
Uh-oh.
And then, of course, because I can't hear, I assume no one else can hear, and I'm waving at the screen.
I thought it was a dance break or something.
Like a ding-dong.
Yeah. But seventh inning stretch. To him, to the character himself, I think he would think that if I do this for them, then I'm sort of opening myself up and I'm doing something, so I'll do it, and, I'll also get back at these guys, and I want to put a cap in them because they're a menace, and whatever their motivation he had. But at the same time, they pulled one over on him, right? He was the decoy, and he didn't know that. Now it was probably Pappagallo who made that decision, and Pappagallo dies.
It doesn't tell him.
They do come back to him because he's got to give the feral kid over to them. Like, they
don't come back to him. It was his only friend, the gyro captain.
Oh, does he?
Who comes and picks him up. That's it. Like,
he's in the back of the bus. And he said that's the last time we saw him, and he's being driven away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but it was because because the gyro captain came. Like, otherwise they would have just died, and it's like, well, I guess they're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the team, the rest of them were ever going to pick him up.
Yeah. Oh no.
I don't think they were ever going to pick him up. It was strictly the gyro captain who went, I gotta go. He's the only one who actually went and saved him. And
it was a nice earned moment at the end when he sort of, of course the helicopter crash would have broken his legs, but anyway, it was a nice little moment where he sort of wheeled up to him and he sort of, took off his goggles, and he had the stogie going, and they had that one of those sort of those cinematic shared smiles, and almost at the end of Jaws where he
had a bit of a badass moment.
Hooper and Brody just kind of go, wordlessly almost, and he goes, Quint? Yeah. He goes, no. And then they just sort of go off, and you can sort of slight tangent as the credits go up. You can see them sort of get onto they float into shore and they get onto land and stuff. But anyway,
what did you think there was any other like subtext? You've got that. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If we can call it a theme, you know what? Like it's pretty much a, you know, not just necessarily good versus evil, but I would say chaos versus order.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that they're in an environment where, like, they're in an environment where order cannot be imposed.
Yeah.
There is no, all of these things are always about getting out of the wastelands. The wastelands is the place, it's the hell, the purgatory. This is, and I made a note of this, Jim, like when I was thinking about other myths and that, you know what it reminded me of? So, have you been, pretension alert, have you been to Florence?
I haven't, no.
Oh, okay, well, the Duomo, the big cathedral, in the dome, it's this out of this very vivid Renaissance imagery of hell and pitchforks and all this just really horrific and disturbing and kind of insane imagery. I'm also thinking of not purgatory, but the hell in the Inferno part of the Divine Comedy. The wasteland is not. It's a place. It's not a place for order. You know that it and that all these people, they try and have a little order. It's going to be destroyed. All they can do is escape to some, again, like it's we got to go back to Eden, but not to civilization, not to society, not to rebuild. Like even in the end voiceover, there's this kind of we're the great northern tribe, like this idea of almost this fantasy idea. It's like society went too far advanced and we've got to go back to a more natural, noble, savage time.
Yeah.
And with the northern tribe being white.
and yeah.
Like, and again, I don't want to, it's 1982. Like, it'd be interesting to, has Miller been interviewed on that? Has he ever spoken to the issue? It might be something worth digging into.
Do you remember how big David Bowie was at the time, and Let's Dance was probably right around that time? Do you remember the rock video for Let's Dance? It was, and I believe it was Let's Dance, and I'm just pulling this out of the air, but it featured two, like an Aboriginal couple, an Australian Aboriginal couple, working in the city, and I think they went out of the city to go back into the country to reclaim it to some extent. And David Bowie was playing in a small town, like one of those highway bars in Australia.
Okay,
remember during the day, and he was
vaguely,
he had his yellow suit on. He was singing, and you think like, okay, Bowie, another star. You get another sticker for that. Is that when you had these other movies that we've watched from Australia, not a single Aboriginal person, and he manages to make them the two stars of his video. But
and it's interesting. You think about Bowie, although by then he was at the time he wanted to look. Well, his look was, let's say, a little more, air quotes, normal. But there was a guy who I suspect if he had watched, he's watching this movie. Even then, he'd be going, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Really? Oh yeah, it's the weirdos who cause all the trouble. What's Reagan doing in Central America?
Family values.
What are they? What are they? What's this about curing you would just pray the gay, which I'm not saying it started right in the early 80s, but and hysteria about Satanist cults. So I'm, and again, it'd be interesting. At the same time, it's not like Alien, it's a conscious choice, and I thought that's brilliant. To play with that fear of that, play with the homophobia and turn it into the horror. that I thought was a super cool choice. Here, though, it's like one of those things. It's okay. I'd really like wondering where you were coming from. Makes me want to watch. I mean, it's the same guy though. Didn't he direct Babe? Pig in the Babe? Like
yeah,
made Babe.
I think so, yeah.
Babe.
You're right. Yeah.
Brian May did the music for this. Queen did the music.
Brian
May.
I saw that name. Yeah. You know, the soundtrack. The soundtrack. Okay, so that's one of the things that bugs me about this movie. And the soundtrack was good. I quite liked it. I'm not a musicologist, but it seemed fitting. It was epic, and it lent a majesty to what was going on.
I thought it was going to be more like Tron, and then when I was listening, I did my research, I'm like, no, this is like a big movie
orchestral.
Epic.
Yeah, not like if you remember Gallipoli was that the Maurice Jarre with the laser. The sort of and I think they played with that juxtaposition a little bit, but and I wanted to ask you, this is a full-on, and I don't know anything about the financing, but it was shot in Australia, as we described, starring a lot of Australians, and it feels Australian. I don't know if you get that. I just, on a real shallow sense. What would the Canadian, why, and I guess it's probably because the States is so close.
A great freaking question, but yeah, go ahead.
What would the Canadian equivalent be if, what's the closest that we've come to having some kind of
not
bonkers, crazy, over the top, super successful, star-making movie that's full on in country? Like I
do not. Well, okay, no, actually, Jim, you know what? I think we saw it. Blood Quantum.
Yeah.
That had bonkers moments. Even the why did Lysol get his wang bit off? Because there was that movie was nuts in the best way.
No, that's a good point.
I do think, though, and it's funny, actually, and quick teaser for those folks who are still watching, I'm actually going to be, I did an interview with a local director, and we get into this a little bit, the Canadian kind of style of filmmaking. And when I say Canadian, let's put a capital C on it, and not Quebecois, and they're just way more comfortable with genre production. I think there's almost like a little too much Canada Council in the rest of Canada.
And I need to watch more Quebec movies myself. I know that.
Yeah, we all should. In part, it's just great cinema. But going back to that, Jim, now here I'm not sure we could, because again, we do not have, just like we're not going to make a Western. Richard brought it up last time. You know what? Ours is, if we're making something set in the West, it's about the isolation and it makes the individual crazy or whatever. I think this is, and maybe you can almost say, what's the Australian? And this would be a neo, not a Western, but a neo outback movie.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I just don't know enough about Australian film. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think, though, that there's not that. We do not have, and again, now I'm going to go back to Blood Quantum. Like, let's say you and I, this kind of we're a lot, because consent is so important in our culturally, and there's that slow and steady wins the race kind of vibe, and a lot of our myths about the peaceful kingdom, the quiet, peaceful kingdom nonsense. We just don't have that. There isn't that individual. We do not celebrate individualism like the Americans do, like the Australians do, or at least parts of their culture do. And so, we don't have these, because you look at the Western, you look at this post-apocalyptic fantasy. It's, that these areas where it allows a man to be a man, and I'm not making a compliment there, that kind of the ability to deal with things violently, resolutely and violently, and take, and it's just not a Canadian kind of MO. We like to take passive aggressively through, reneging on deals and stuff, eh? Yeah. And I think that's why, Blood Quantum, I have a hard time seeing let's say like you and I'd have a hard time seeing you and I coming up with Blood Quantum, like something like that, whereas an indigenous, like a Canadian, or let's say a North American, a Treaty 1 or Treaty 3, like a Canadian, I'm going to get stuck on these labels and we'll never get out of here. A Canadian indigenous filmmaker can, because of that history of violence, imposed.
Yeah.
And the way Buddy was able to flip that around, I think was just goddamn brilliant. But yeah, I don't think we'd ever, I don't see a Road Warrior kind of thing come out, because it's got to make sense in the space too. Like, the Road Warrior is so Australian. From the Mundi to the accents to that idea, like even when they're talking about two tribes, they do not see them. We kind of see ourselves as like some little brother to the United States.
Yeah.
Like Australians see themselves as, no, that's over there, that's over there. We're something different here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, geography, has, so they can use Western tropes, but I don't think they don't make Western films.
Yeah.
They use Western tropes to tell a uniquely Australian experience about the outback and, where men go to be men, that uncivilized wasteland.
Where
again, I'm sure. So you don't want too many indigenous people in your, neo-Australian outback film, because they might say, well, it's fine until you got here. The wasteland, that's what you see in your eyes.
Alpha male's gonna alpha,
Exactly. Anyway. Well, listen, Jim, before we get to final thoughts.
Sure.
We got to beg. We got to beg, baby. What do we want first? We want your likes. What's next, Jim? Shout it out.
Subscribe.
And then ring that bell. You know what? There's so much in this movie, Jim. Like, I mean, I don't think I've gotten through half my, like,
no.
And they were all quick notes. Like, it wasn't like I was like, I didn't have to fight for this stuff, but there's so much in this, in what's otherwise a pretty simple film, but like, it's still good. Oh, I did ask you, and then I think I just kept talking, because just as Mad Max races around fighting with other scavengers over gas, Rob asks a question and then answers it without even waiting for the person he asked to. Any other subtext you saw in this movie that wasn't overt? I had the whole, well, it's kind of a good evil, chaos versus order, wasteland's chaotic, you got to go outside, beyond the borders. What about you? What did you see? Was there anything?
No, I'm
Does
sure.
it ask a philosophical question?
That's a good, how can you, I guess it might be just how do you remain good in an environment like this? I mean, you can make your choices, but not every.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just reading as well.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I guess it's just, how do you move? It's a variation of how do you move forward in a world like this, and he tries and he resists it, and he resists getting involved. Then he decides to throw his hat in the ring. He also doesn't have too many other options. And he's betrayed, and he's left with nothing. His dog's dead, his car's destroyed, and he has to go on to movie number 3. But
what's he betrayed though? Like,
I don't think he thought he was a decoy, but that was a bit
of
like,
died before when he was basically. You.
No, but I'm saying, in throwing his hat in the ring, in deciding to go with these people, he risked it all, and he essentially loses it all, except for his life.
No, he had lost it all already. Like, he didn't have a car, he didn't have his dog. Like, he was lucky Buddy came and got him, or he would have just died in the ditch, literally.
Yeah, that's true.
I think, he, by the end, he was really like, Papagallo was right. It's like, well, we don't, you said no, that offer's over.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's the whole thing
I don't
where
think he was like, by then they were like, kind of, okay, you are a contract worker, just like you've treated us. We're just a contract to you. So I think in some ways he got what he reaped what he sowed. And that he was alive at all because the gyro captain kept saving his ass. Is kind of amazing.
And a couple other thoughts. Well, in terms of him, he should have died at that point. It almost reminded me of Quint from Jaws. Quint was given 30 extra years of life, so the fact that he, spoiler alert, dies at the end, it was coming anyways. It was fated. Everything else was gravy. And this one gets to go on to other adventures and Quint doesn't. But a couple of other notes. It was interesting. As a kid, I didn't realize they were sort of besieged at the time. I thought it was just one conflict, so that was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. I did question why everyone took the same route out and having to go by the bad guys, but that's a small quibble. And I liked how there were.
It was amazing how many little pieces that makes no sense, but keep being crazy. Sorry,
exactly.
Okay,
and also that there was infighting in the town, basically.
Oh yeah,
amongst all the people dressed in white, which is I sort of wondering why the 3 cars took off at the start, of the 4 cars took off at the start, and basically signing their own death warrants. But so there was a lot of interesting things that I hadn't picked up on seeing it young. I've seen it in parts. I don't know when the last time I watched the full thing was. Certainly, I have since 1981, but it was nice to get back to it and watch the whole thing. And the other thing that I should add too, 95 minutes. Like, if you asked me before, how long's Road Warrior? I think, well, so much happens. It's probably 2.5 hours, maybe 2.25 hours. It's a tight 95 minutes, and
the same, going back to what you're saying, still moments where it breathed.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like when he was up on the hill, just watching them.
Yeah.
And just letting it roll out, like you say, Jim, rolling out on that big field, that big Australian expanse, where things are happening. Then they'll cut in, so you get a little bit of the moment, but then back to his point of view,
Yeah. No, it was pretty tight and moved like a rocket. Like, it was just and without sacrificing, I think, too much, and they were able to capture who these people were with a lot of visuals and a lot of other things, but still had room for like big spiky trucks and that
all the other insanity.
And the people mounted on top who turned out to be kind of useless. And but anyway,
so I think could we both agree that with some caveats, and again, you know what, if you're looking for a Bechdel test passing diversity in front and behind this camera, you're not getting it with this one. So
No.
Lots of other great movies to watch, but if given its context and the time it was produced, if you're looking for an example of early 80s action adventure post-apocalyptic, it's in some ways I don't think has ever been improved upon, much imitated, never it kind of defined the genre, or defined this little micro genre. I'd say it's well worth the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially 95 minutes. Bam. It's no Irishman. It's nice and tight. And the other thing I too should add, great summer movie.
Absolutely.
Like, this would be a fantastic drive-in movie.
Yeah. No, with a drive-in burger, a smash burger at the.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So I guess we're Well, first of all, we're at that time now, everybody. We still got a couple of regulars still viewing. Thank you both very much.
We've gone over the link.
So next week, here's an interesting thing. So next week, while Jim and I will be off, I will actually be. Jim will be at the lake at an undisclosed location at the lake. I will be in one of Parks Canada's beautiful parks for the August long weekend, but we will have a show. As I mentioned earlier, I did an interview with a local director, and this actually came from Jim and I, as we've talked before, and when we were talking about the Old Guard, and it's like, okay, at what point is it the director's responsibility? When isn't it? Kyle Wong is a local independent short film director. He also works on service production. His most recent one was he was the assistant director to Fundamentally Different Jobs, which we do briefly discuss. But Kyle and I talk about, right out of the gate, I'm like, so Kyle, when can we blame the director for what's on screen? And then it's like a 2-hour deep dive into directing and the director versus some of the other players on set, and what's important. What is the director's key function? What is he or she trying to do? And we talk about some successes, some failures, that kind of thing. A lot about his experience as a Winnipeg, born and raised Winnipeg director, starting just out on his own, and then as he went through film school and some of the, he's made some shorts, he's produced other people's shorts, and he's kind of he's a genre filmmaker, and it'll be a cool interview, and so that'll be, well, Jim and I are at the lake, so to speak, or literally. We will still have a show. It'll premiere next Monday, and we'll look forward to you watching. And if you have any questions for Kyle, of course, we've already done their interview, but leave it comments, and Kyle may be joining us in the future for other things, and we can cool. Always do a follow-up. So There we go. That's what's going on next week. So that will be premiering next, where are we here?
3rd.
Yeah, next Monday. Yeah, thank you very much, Jim. August 3rd at 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Universal Time Code offset -5. So that's Monday, August 3rd, 9:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Universal Time Code offset -5. Jim, you'll stick around, eh?
Yep.
We'll have our post show beer.
I need a costume change.
Yes. I may need to tinkle. Hashtag overshare. All right. I am officially, let us cue the outro.